Hey there boys and girls, Lucky here and welcome back to my very first Battlefield 5 closed alpha gameplay video. This actually is really my very first gameplay. I thought it would be fitting for a first impressions video so you can get kind of an idea of what you might expect the first time you jump into the game to see how everything is going on. I did have a quick other game before that, but just to put on the settings to the proper sensitivity and stuff like that. I didn't really play there. I was just setting up all my controls. So this is my real very first match that I played. But yeah, first impressions of the closed alpha so far. I have had lots of questions about how the game actually feels. And as always, we have to keep in mind, first of all, this is still pre-alpha or, well, closed alpha. So there's still lots of things to be changed, especially optimization-wise. The game should run a lot smoother in case you're running into any issues. Now, for the first impressions, we'll be taking a closer look from the perspective of a Recon player. So just keep that in mind when I'm talking about these points right here. Now, first of all, I'll be comparing kind of the game to older Battlefield titles and how sniping was back then, because this is usually the question that I get asked the most and first of all the time, and that's usually what does the game feel like, how does it play, kind of like that. And some people said, obviously, well, it's just a Battlefield 1 reskin, which it really isn't. It doesn't feel like the game at all, but it feels more like, I'd say like 50% Battlefield 4 and 50% Bad Company 2. It doesn't really feel like Battlefield 3, so you do not have that snappy grittiness. It's a little bit more kind of also with the pace of older Battlefield titles. I mean, it doesn't really feel like Battlefield 2 or 1942, but the pace is a little slower due to the way the game is kind of made. But I'd say for like overall movement, gunplay, and mechanics kind of, I'd say if you're kind of taking Battlefield 4 50% or maybe even 60% and some Bad Company 2, then you're pretty close already. And I'd say if you're going into the game expecting kind of that, that's probably what you also be getting, I think. Now let's talk about suppression really quickly. It's gone, finally, so that's super awesome. Where you're aiming at is where your bullet is gonna land, so that's pretty epic. Just make sure you're standing still and holding your breath and all of that to maximize your accuracy and all of that stuff. But besides that, it's more consistent now, so where you're aiming, you're actually also gonna hit your targets. Now, I also briefly before touched on the pace of the game. You really have to first of all conserve your ammo, so you got one mag in your rifle and then 2 more, so 15 shots in total. You can pick up another 5 rounds at like an ammo station or something, so you got 20 rounds at max. That really is not a lot at all, so you really have to be kind of a little bit slower. You can't just waste your ammo left and right, and this is kind of also why the gameplay pace is a little bit more reduced in my opinion. Not only because you have less ammo, but also, for example, as I also briefly mentioned before, it does feel a little bit, just a little bit like Battlefield 4 as well. In that game we had the kind of, I call it the wobbly head movements, and I feel like that is partly back kind of in Battlefield 5. It's hard to really pinpoint. It's not as extreme as it was in that game, but you still see like if someone is doing the AD spam, or due to all the animations when people are being revived, as soon as someone is a little bit laggy, they do this kind of like weird thing as we had, for example, with the vaulting in Battlefield 3, where they're just kind of like skipping frames, so it makes them kind of hard to hit. And then again, if you're being shot at by one person, even though when you're on the shooting end with like a, I don't know, a fully auto gun or a DMR or something, for example, you do take the shots. However, on the receiving end, it feels like you're getting many shots at the same time. So again, this is also something that really should make you more aware of where you're going, and this is also another thing that reduces the pace just a tiny bit, because you always have to be aware to go from cover to cover, and you can just stand out in the open, otherwise you're gonna get killed. Especially against the medic class. The medic class, once again, is super strong in the game, so they got the DMRs, which are really, especially with a good kind of scope that they actually have on there, are really a competition for you as a sniper, because they can just AD spam, and if it's long range, they just get more bullets down the road and probably can hit you more often. Well, it's really hard to hit someone who's AD spamming with a sniper rifle. So just keep that in mind when you're going up against any other targets. Besides that, I'm really liking the game so far. I'm gonna make obviously more videos and show you guys what it's gonna be like when you're playing it as well. But yeah, I think that's for now. These were my first impressions about the game, and you will be seeing more of those in the upcoming videos. So I'd say, Lucky Skill, figure out.